This is the video for 2-7 solving proportions. A proportion is when two ratios or fractions are equal. So for example, 1/2 equals 2 over 4. Those fractions are proportional with one another. Cross products are products obtained by multiplying the two means or the two extremes of a proportion. And I have a written explanation here of exactly what the mean and what the extreme is on a proportion. Cross products property is a way to eliminate fractions in an equation. And how the cross products property works is this. I take the product of the means and I take the product of the extremes and I can set them equal to each other. B times C and A times D are called cross products, and the cross products property allows me to set them equal to each other. So I want you to just pause on the vocab for now. We're going to go back to it, and I want you to go ahead and go to example number 1, solving a proportion using the multiplication property. So I can look at this problem and I can say, well, I want to isolate my variable, and so how am I going to do that? This 12 here is connected to this m through division, so I want to undo that operation through multiplication, and so I want to multiply both sides by 12. And I get m equals 12 over 1 times 7 over 8. And I can cross reduce, and I get 21 over 2. And this way works, and you can do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, if your variable is in the denominator, this no longer becomes the most efficient way to solve it. Now, you can solve it using multiplication. You can solve it by undoing this operation. So I can look at this and I can say, well, I'm going to multiply both sides by x, and then I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 4 over 3. And that will get you your answer, but that's not the most efficient way to do this. Whenever you have a proportion, whenever you have two fractions that are equal to one another, the best way to solve this, the most efficient way to solve this, is to use the cross products property. And so all I would do is say 4 times x equals 8 times 3. And there's your answer. So what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video right now, and I want you to solve both of these. I want you to solve this one using multiplication property, and then this one using the cross product property. Okay, so I said solve this one using the multiplication property. So that means I need to multiply both sides by 7 to get this x by itself. So those 7s will cancel out, and I'm left with 4 over 5 times 7 over 1. There's nothing I can cross reduce, and so that's my answer. Here, I can multiply both sides by x and then multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 3 over 5, but that's not the most efficient way to do this because my variable is in my denominator. I can use the cross product property to solve that. You can do that, that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But here I would definitely use the cross product property. There's no better way to do this. So all I'm going to do is say 3 times x is going to equal 13 times 5. And 13 times 5 is 65. And that cannot reduce any further. And so there's your answer. Okay, example number 2. Again, the concept is remaining the same, the problems are just getting a little bit more complex. I can look at this and I can say I have a denominator, and so I'm going to multiply both sides by 20 and I'm going to cross reduce, and you can do that and that will work. There's nothing wrong with that. But using the cross product property, you're doing the same thing. It's just in a more abbreviated version. So I can say 4 times b minus 8 is going to equal the same thing as 5 times b plus 3. And make sure you put these in parentheses. That's super important because you're saying 4 times all of b minus 8, 5 times all of b plus 3. That's super important. And now I'm doing the same math I've been doing. I want to use the distributive property to say 4b minus 32 is equal to 5b plus 15. And the math is exactly what we've been doing. Look at this part right here. Be super careful. I've got negative 32 minus 15. Go keep, change, change. Go through that process so you do not make a math error. And there's your answer. I want you to look though real fast, and I want you to see something. Let me rewrite this problem real fast here. I want to make sure that you understand what I mean by it's the same thing. Watch what happens. So this was my original problem. Well, what if I didn't want to use the cross product property? What if I said, let me remove my denominator? So that means I would multiply both sides by 20. I'm going to multiply this by 20, and I'm going to multiply this by 20. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross reduce. So that becomes 5, and this becomes 4. And so what do I have? 4 times b minus 8 equals 5 times b plus 3. Do you see how this and this are the same thing? This is what I mean by cross product, and then all the math after that would be the exact same. But this is what I mean by the cross product property is just an abbreviated version of this. You're taking b minus 8 times 4. You're taking b minus 8 times 4. Please pause the video and make sure you understand that, because as you go deeper and deeper into algebra, I want you to understand the math, not just try to get the answer. So please pause the video and make sure you can see how these are the same thing. Okay, so now what I want you to do is just pause the video and work out this problem. And again, I would use the cross product property in this situation just because it's more efficient than this, but you certainly don't have to. But go ahead and practice it right now while you get used to it, because it is a more efficient way to solve. So solve this using the cross product property. Okay, so I'm going to take 6 times n, and I encourage you to draw your butterfly there, times, 6 times n equals 5 times 2n plus 4. Make sure that 2n plus 4 is in parentheses, and then you have to distribute the 5. I want to start here. I want to subtract 10n from both sides, not subtract 6n from both sides. Because if I subtract 6n from both sides, I'm going to have 0 over here, which is okay. You'll still get the same answer, you're just adding an extra step for yourself. Because then you're going to have to end up bringing something back over there anyway. So let me just start by subtracting 10n from both sides so I don't leave myself with a 0 on one side. And so then n is going to equal negative 5. Okay, so stop the video, but before you do your homework, I want you to watch the video on 2.8 because I am combining these two lessons together.